that we lock and narrow abortion into something that goes on in the womb. Abortion is anything that keeps a individual from reaching their fullness of life to which God created them. So poor education is abortion. Poverty is abortion. Classism is abortion. Sexism is abortion. Any of those things that keep that child from reaching his or her purpose and destiny and achieving the greatness and success to which God called them, those are all forms of abortion. So I'm not going to be a part of some pro-life movement that all they want to do is get them born, and then they say, "To hell with you. We're through with you."
Religion as a human tool has led to centuries of cruelty. Faith as a concept in its most pure form has given many comfort, meaning, and purpose. And yet it is challenging to find truth faith leaders. When I first stumbled upon Pastor Michael Pfleger, I was curious, and then I was truly taken with his interpretation of faith. While I'm not a believer, I love hearing about how he is, and may we all strive for such righteousness. I hope you enjoy. This is The Other Pod.
Well,
Hello.
hello, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you, sir?
Good, good, very good.
Yeah.
Yep, doing well.
Thank you.
It's a little cold and snowy here today, but outside of that, I'm
Yes.
good.
Thank you for making time. You know, I've been wanting to do this for many years, so I'm very, very happy to have you on.
Thank you. Good to be on.
How's life going? How's everything in your neck of the woods? I know there's a lot going on over there with ice and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's very challenging right now. We have the ICE that are continuing to do raids on people and tear gas people and pepper ball people, even though they've been told they can't just do that into communities, but it's been done and continues to be done. While, the government is still playing with people's lives about food. And it's, I can't, it's sometimes it's hard for me to even fathom the fact that we are arguing about whether to feed people. The basic human reality, whether you're conservative, progressive, Democratic, Republican, Independent, to me, a basic belief we ought to all have is that everybody should eat. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be a reality right now.
If I can ask you, because there's a lot of abstract about this, right? Like, oh, people can't eat, but what does it actually look like? How many are you serving more people? Are more people struggling? Can you talk to me about
Well,
the reality of it?
yeah. Well, our food pantry, for instance, there goes between usually about 160 a day. We continue to break records. Last week, our highest day was 322 people came in one day for food, and we can't possibly keep up with those numbers. Um, so it continues to grow, and it's a variety of things. Number one, there's always been poor people and who needed pantries. Before immigration, before Trump, we've always had people who were living on the margin and people who were hungry. But then you add to that um, the people who have lost their jobs. And I don't talk about just the government jobs who've been shut down. I'm talking about people who have lost jobs in this economy. Then third, you have the immigrants who are not able to work or afraid to work and who are in need of food. And then the fourth element, which we've had an increasing number of, are people who come to our pantry and said, I've never been to a food pantry before, but because I live from hand to mouth, and now with the food prices, I can't I can't feed my family on my salary, so they're supplementing their food with the pantry. So there's new people that are coming to food pantries, never been there before, but can't survive on the prices and inflation right now in the stores. A week ago, Saturday, we were doing every Saturday now, we're giving away 500 food boxes. A week ago, Saturday, we had 500, and we turned away over 100 cars. This past Saturday, we had 700 boxes, and we fed about 625, and we were able to give everybody food. So it's a combination of things. I think people are hungry, people are in need of food. People are living in fear. Um, Nobody is really discussing the trauma of a mother who's wondering how's she going to take care of her kids, or of the senior wondering how I'm going to eat and get medication. So you have the trauma and the emotional as well as the physical just need for food to eat.
So this I'm going to jump back to my earlier questions, but this sort of leads right into my point that I would love to talk to you about, which is the current Republican Party is the party purportedly of faith, of Christian ideology of Jesus. How do you reconcile what you've just said to me with these people believing that they are people of faith?
Well, it's a fake faith. They have hijacked the Bible and hijacked Jesus. The Jesus that they're talking about, first of all, you can't say you love God and hate people. You can't do that. The Jesus that I serve and the Bible that I read talks about whatever you do for the least, you do for him. It talks about welcoming the stranger. When you welcome the stranger, you're welcoming angels. It's about loving one another. The biggest command of the Bible is love for one another. And it's followed up with making sure that everybody is cared for, that there should be nobody in need. And so this community is doing this Republican Party is doing all this, and they're doing it in the name of Jesus, and that's what I think angers me the most is that that's why I think so many young people are saying, well, if this is what Christianity is, I don't want to have anything to do with it because it's a mean. And then, in fact, I say this, I've said this for years, and I continue to say it. Nobody should be going to church on Sundays and feeling comfortable they're a good Christian who hates, who is racist, who is homophobic, who is sexist. You should not be able to sit in a church and feel comfortable. So, what are we preaching that people that hate people, people that are prejudiced against people, people that don't care if people are starving, feel comfortable in church? Then what kind of church is that?
Well, I'd love to ask you that question. What is the future of faith and for Jesus if this is the tent that is taking him over and taking that messaging over? Like, what is the future for this faith, or can it be reclaimed?
Well, what I've been saying in all the talks I've been giving over the last couple of months and different national Zoom calls that I've been on over the last few weeks is I think the reason this Christian right nationalists have been able to become the voice and create the narrative is because our voice has become so weak. We've become so middle of the road. We've become so, you know, just get along with everybody that we no longer have the voice we ought to be. So, shame on us for letting them change the narrative. But now, let's wake up and let's decide that we are going to be very, very loud about what Christianity stands for and exposing and calling out the Paula Whites and these imitation Christians that are wrapping themselves in Jesus, but are living and speaking and doing things that have nothing to do, in fact, things that Jesus was absolutely against. They should not be able to hijack the Bible while we are silent. And Gardner Taylor, a great preacher and friend of mine who's now deceased, said some years ago to me, he said, I don't care what people do, but stop doing it in the name of Jesus. So the things that are being done now that are not Jesus should be exposed, should be caught out. And the faith communities have an opportunity now, I believe, to be the moral voice, the voice of conscience, the voice of justice. Justice is the DNA of Christianity. It's not some tagged on organization. It is the DNA. His first words, the Spirit of the Lord upon me, free the captives, feed the hungry, give sight to the blind. Blessed are the poor, blessed are those who hunger and thirst. His whole gospel was a justice gospel. And yet we push that to the back burner. And shame on Christianity for allowing that to happen. And it's not the first time it's happened. Slave ships, we did it. Slavery did it. Lynching did it. So we have allowed throughout history, Christianity has been taken over by those who want to use it to justify their evil. It's time for that to stop, or the church will become irrelevant.
So, to your point, you said at one time the faith community must see racism as its original sin. I think what's been interesting in this administration is, to a certain extent, economics are also the tool to sort of impugn and punish people. I was wondering, would you consider that quote differently now, or do you still feel that way? And how do you think sort of the economics of being poor play into this, the current state of the world?
Now, I would stick with that because the original sin is racism, and because I think racism includes the economic, includes all of the things that keep people held captive. The greatest command of the Bible is love. Love your neighbor as yourself. The gospel tells us God is love. So if that's the greatest command, so love is not just saying I love you. God is making the love is true love, lived out love, is making sure every man, woman, and child have everything they're supposed to have to reach their dignity, to reach their purpose. If we say God calls us all with a purpose and a divine plan, like Jeremiah, I knew you in the womb, I had plans for you. If we believe that everybody is born with a purpose from God, then anything that keeps them from reaching that purpose, sexism, racism, whatever, poor education system, not the ability to have a job, not the ability to have housing, that's all against love because love is all inclusive. That's why, and I saw you had as one of your questions, the whole pro life movement of the church. They're fakes. They're not pro life, they're pro birth.
Yes.
And that's why I refuse to get engaged with them. They're pro birth. Pro life is from womb to tomb, making sure that that child not only gets born, but that child can reach his or her destiny. I say this consistently here that we lock and narrow abortion into something that goes on in the womb. Abortion is anything that keeps an individual from reaching their fullness of life to which God created them. So, poor education is abortion. Poverty is abortion. Classism is abortion. Sexism is abortion. Any of those things that keep that child from reaching his or her purpose and destiny and the achievement, the greatness and success to which God called them, those are all forms of abortion. So I'm not going to be a part of some pro-life movement that all they want to do is get them born and then they say, to hell with you. We're through with you. No, it's all a part of the abortion.
Have you gotten pushback for what you just said to me? Because that seems like a very bold statement.
Oh, I have. I have all the time because, I get these pro-life people. I had actually had an argument with somebody in a pro-life movement. It was head of a movement in one of the states just about 3 weeks ago. And they say, well, the most important thing, we gotta focus on one thing, getting them born. I said, no, no. If you were having a baby, is the only thing important to getting them born and then you walk away from them? Please. No. It's womb to tomb. It's their whole life. It's a child being healthy, having education, having food, having clothing. All of that is part of life. Otherwise, all you are doing is being pro-birth. You want to get them here and then say, to hell with you, we're through with you, fend for yourself. No, no, that's a form of abortion. And a lot of pro-life people are abortionists.
With what you're saying, given the tremendous inequity going on right now, how do you get an idea like that to stick? And how can the everyday person, aside from the kindness they extend to someone else that they see, go about changing sort of the landscape right now? And how are you trying to change the landscape? Because if you are an unusual voice, are you able to change things? Are you able to be heard besides your Saint Sabina community?
Well, I think it's by number one, continuing to say that
Yeah.
and continuing to expose them and call them out. And I continue to call them out. And I continue at every chance I get to expose them for their narrow-minded form of abortion. I've said to the pro-life people here in Chicago and the Archdiocese of Chicago, so you're out wanting people to be born, but where were you when children are getting shot in our streets? Where were you when children are eating out of garbage cans? Where were you when the schools um were are giving graduating with third grade education? That child can't function or compete on the world stage. So it's, I think, continuing to expose them out, and I think getting leadership in the church, the hierarchy, to become much more vocal. I think Pope Francis became more and more was doing that as he lived on. Pope Leo has made some great statements about that now. I think hopefully he can continue to move in that direction and continue to be more vocal. But I think I think what we got to be afraid, not stop being afraid that the people that will come against you do what's right. Thurgood Marshall said, um, just do what's right and let the world catch up. That's what we got to start doing. Just do what's right. Do what the Bible says. Because what we're understanding is in two different realms. In the church realm, the reality should be young people have walked away from your church because they don't relate with your 1940s and 1950s racist teaching. In the government world, people are not voting. Young people are not voting because they say, I don't see any difference between Democrats and Republicans. Look at Zoran Mandani. He stood for something from the people's values about equity and inclusion for all. The largest number of young people ever turned out for an election in New York. And my thing is that, are the Democrats ever going to wake up? I mean, we just saw last night eight Democratic senators caved into the Republican Party for nothing.
I know.
They sold out the poor on SNAP and on Medicaid. 20 million people's health care is going to more than double.
I know.
And they caved in. So don't try to guilt young people for not voting. They don't see anything to vote in. Vote for. This old mentality, well, we're better than them. Better than them is still bad. So either present, like a Mandani did, a real agenda that people can vote for. And my God, I was so grateful when I saw him win in New York and win so great. And I thought, if this does not wake up the Democratic Party, then the Democratic Party is over. They're
But remember, a
finished.
few days later, we're here.
Yeah, I know.
Now the whole thing is undone.
They they didn't wake up. And what they're going to see is they're going to see that people are, wait, don't come out here in campaign time and ask for a vote. You give me nothing to vote in. And I
Agreed.
said yesterday, and I said again, every one of those eight senators should be voted out of office. Now I know Durbin is not running again, so he can't be voted. Every one of those should be voted out. Tim Kaine, all of them should be voted out of office.
I agree. I agree. And I think that's what's so shocking is I think I at least thought the Democrats, they were bought and paid for by the same people, but I thought they at least valued the things that the populace values, and I think they only just value themselves. And that's very
Oh,
unfortunate.
absolutely. And the question that I've heard from so many since last night, including myself, what did they get?
They got something, I'm telling you that right now.
We both know that. So once again, you took care of yourself
Yeah.
at the expense of people.
Yes.
So in my mind, the people are saying to the eight of them, go to hell. You're not getting my vote.
Yeah.
And don't send me the Democratic Party to be condemning them so strongly today
Agreed. Agreed. Agreed.
for selling out the people.
Agreed.
But I have no belief in either party. As people of faith, we should be voting for policy, not people. And if you don't give me a policy worth voting for, I'm not voting.
Okay. Let's discuss something else that's in short supply, which touches on what you just said, which are empathy and altruism. You gave up, a certain kind of life, and it sounds like some sort of connection with your family to do the service that you do now. What is it that fills up your cup on a daily basis such that you have more to give and that you're able to sort of regenerate what you're able to give? And what do you see? Do you think that empathy and altruism have changed, or do you think they are at the same place they've always been?
Well, I think the reality is they're the same place and always been for me, but I think that not necessarily the value in society more. I'd say three things for me is that number one, it fills my cup and keeps me going. First of all, because I am a believer, I'm a prisoner of hope. Unless God tells me he quit, I'm gonna get up every morning and fight because I know the end. We win. Righteousness wins, love wins, justice wins. I don't have to see it, but I could do my part in the marathon race to fight for it because it is going to win. But the three things for me are number one, my faith. Every morning I get up and in my prayer time, always part of my prayer time is telling God, I can't do this. I can't do this without you. I can't do it without your strength. I can't do it without your wisdom. I can't do it without your direction. So you lead me today. Put the words in my mouth. Direct my path today, and give me what I need. And at the end of the day, my prayer time is always asking forgiveness where I messed up, where I didn't do right better, where I should have done this and did that, where I should have spoken and I was quiet, where I was quiet and should have spoken. Uh, so it's my faith. Number two is always having had and still having had mentors in my life that I have ultimate respect for. And I've been blessed in my life to have had the King family, to have had Coretta, to have had Betty Shabazz, to have had Harry Belafonte, um, to have had the Maya Angelos who mentored me. Um, and and most important than all those is Dr. King. His words today, I read his stuff every week because it's as relevant today as it was when he spoke it. He has probably had the greatest influence on my life. So I tell people always have mentors that you respect and that you learn from and listen to, whether they're dead or alive. And then the present day, mentors like the Jeremiah Wrights and like the Cornell Wesses and the folks who continue. Jasmine Crockett, a New Day, mentor of mine who I have just great respect for. So having mentors, um, having your faith first, having mentors who inspire you and encourage you and challenge you, and then finally have a small circle, very small circle of people who share your beliefs, share your passion, and are willing to lock arms to fight together, that you can also vent with, be yourself with. Some of my days go between rage and crying, and I got to have that small group that sees me with both. And I don't know you're lacking faith if you cry. No, I hurt right now. I hurt for what I see out here, and I'm angry about what I see. So I need people, a group around me who believe in the things I believe, who fight for the things I believe in, and who I can be free with.
Okay.
So those three parts of my life keep me going.
You mentioned a lot of mentors, and I'm curious, where do you land on Malcolm X? Because for me personally, I don't know where you're going to fall on this, but I think there comes a time when one must be unequivocal and sort of unrelenting. And I think some would deem that as violence, but I think on the other end, there has to be a point where you're not willing to compromise your sort of soul or your people any longer. And I feel like we've kind of hit that. So, what is your understanding and what are your thoughts on him specifically?
Oh, he's a hero of mine. I never got to meet or know him really. I've read, obviously all his talks, and I'm a great follower of his. But his wife, Betty Shabazz, was a very, very dear friend of mine, and came here many times. I spent a lot of time with her. I learned about Malcolm through her, um, and have a great respect for him. And I am because of Dr. King. I am will always believe in the power of nonviolence. I've seen it work in my life countless times, but um, but I also understand those who say they choose violence. I mean, I get that. What did Dr. King constantly tell the government and tell the evildoers? You can go my way, or it'll be the other way. So you can make up your mind. But I think what is important is this. One is the masterminds of Dr. King and of Malcolm in his finally after his later days is that to be able to say, okay, there's there was room for Elijah Muhammad, there was room for Stokely Carmichael, there was room for Cesar Chavez, there was room for the Black Panthers, there was room for the Nation of Islam, and there was room for the civil rights movement with Dr. King, and because they had a common target. And while they had a common target, there were different lanes. So Dr. King said, I'm always going to be a nonviolent. I believe in the power of nonviolence. Others said, well, we believe there's a time when you have to take up arms. Other side, there's time that you burn down, but whatever it may be. There was different lanes. And I remember when Stokely Carmichael called Dr. King an Uncle Tom, and he is a spokesman for the white people. And the next day they came to Dr. King and said, what do you think about what Stokely Carmichael said about you as your Uncle Tom? And Dr. King's response was, he's my brother.
Okay.
That was it. So we can disagree and we can respect. And that's the problem that we don't have today. First of all, we're so busy fighting each other, we forget the common target. And then second of all, we all want to be so self-righteous. Well, our way is the only way. And we do that not only in policies and politics, we do that in faith. Other Muslims they're not going to heaven. Oh, the Jews are, the Christians are. At the basis of all of our holy books, the Torah, the Quran, and the Bible, at the basis, it's the same damn principles. Stop arguing about the stuff up here. Let's agree on the basic principles, go after the target. Because those in power, the billionaires and oligarchs and this administration and the dictatorship and fascism, they just love sitting back and turn us against each other so they can go free. So we're fighting over crumbs
Yeah.
while they're eating the pie.
Yeah. No, I agree with everything that you're saying about all of this. I think I wish that more uh, forward facing people within the church could move more in the direction you're in, because I think there's a lot for all of us to gain. And I think having a unified front is the one thing the Republicans have done so well. They've never lost track
Oh,
of what the goal was.
absolutely. They are. It's like, when you went home and we're fighting in the house and you walked out of the house and my name is Pfleger. So what's going on? We walk out this house with a Pfleger family. So the Republicans like that. They learn how to disagree, argue, fight, and walk out and be united. Even if it's evil, even if it's wicked, they are united in it. And we're so busy fighting each other and selling each other out.
Oh, I agree. So you did this one thing, by the way, to this point that I thought was really fascinating. You encourage parishioners to buy time from sex workers as a means of inviting the women to counseling, job training, etc. I would love for you to talk a little bit about how it worked, and I would like to understand why sex workers in particular are so demonized, because I've had sex workers on the show, and I think the level of difficulty they have to simply try to survive, the violence they're exposed to, the inequities. Um, I wish so much more were possible for them. And I'm curious, is there a pathway in some kind of church where there is a way that they could be part of it?
Absolutely. I think how it came about for us was that there was a very strong problem of prostitution on a street, not right runs alongside of the church there on Racine. There was constantly people calling up, complaining, calling the police about arresting these prostitutes. Kids had to walk past them going to school and coming home from school and all this stuff. And they were pushing me up. Well, you got to push the police to do more. You got to push police to more. And I was falling into that same thing until one night, not prayer time, God just convicted me. He said, is that what I did with the prostitutes? Did I call the government? Did I call the Romans to come arrest them? He said, I reached out to him. I loved him. I cared about him. And he convicted me. And that very next Sunday, I got up and told the people, we're not doing this anymore. These are our sisters and our brothers. There's both. How are we going to help them? So I asked for volunteers from the church, men particularly, because most of the prostitutes that were out here at that time were women. And I asked for volunteers to work with me in this program. And people left their hands. Some of their wives weren't so happy that they were volunteering, but they volunteered. And I got a group of people. And then people literally on that moment in the church saying, I'll put money to, I'll put money. So we decided to do is pay for their time. So there were groups of three, and we'd go up to the various women who were doing prostitution on the street and say, "Listen, how much you cost for a half hour?" And they would give their prices anywhere from $40, $50, $60. And it was funny because sometimes it would be one would be a lookout to make sure that there was none of their Johns who would ever come in to do anything, but the other two were talking. So it'd be always two people to talk. Woman, and it was so funny because many times the women would say, "I don't do twosomes. I don't do that." And we said, "No, no, we don't want to do anything but talk to you. That's all we want to do. Here's the money up front. We want to talk to you." And what we said was, first of all, number one, we're from St. Sabina Church. Tell you, we love you. We care about you. God loves you, and you're valuable to God. And we want to see, is there any way that we can help you? The first, I think, week or 2 week out there was one woman says, I only do this when I don't have food for my baby. Oh, great. We have a food pantry. You can stop tonight. We will take care of you till you get a job. And we'll help you get a job because we run an employment center. So then others were, well, I'm on drug. Oh, we'll get help you get into a substance abuse. Some were doing it because they were owned by somebody. They had a pimp, they had a John who was showing them, and they were afraid not to. We'll help you because we were working with an organization that works with sex trafficking and women prostitutes here in the city, and they help um, put them in new places to live, so we could take them out of the dangerous situation and give them another place to live, so they could quit. Some on the spot said, "I want help. I want to get out of this." There were some that said, "No, I'm fine. I like what I do." Okay, well, here's our information. If you ever change, come to us. And because most of us in life don't make major changes in an instant.
Sure.
So there were some 3 months, 6 months, sometimes a year later who came and said, Hey, can you help me still? And we literally ended prostitution on Racine in 3.5 months. What had been dealing with a problem there for over 2 years because we met them with love and said, How do we help you? Instead of how do we condemn you and judge you and lock you up? And I think that's what the church's job ought to be. So we see them as our sister. There's to this day still two of them who are at my church, members of my church, been here ever since.
Wow. Do you think
Have
there's a
worked.
path? Oh, do you think there's a path forward to legalize or to no longer demonize sex work so women who choose to do it or men could do it in a more safe way? Is there a pathway to that in the church?
I don't know if there's a way to legalize it or not. But I think there is a way to address it in the church if we start seeing it as our concern rather than our problem. If we start, the church has become great on judgment and very weak on love. So when we start to loving people and caring for people, we can solve all sorts of needs. But we have become another business, another Fortune 500 company, and we see our mission as the people that sit in our pews. I tell the folks here very clearly when people say, "Well, how big is your membership?" Oh, I said, "Oh, the Auburn, Gresham, Chatham, and Englewood communities." They say, "Well, what are you talking about?" Churches, synagogues, and mosques sit in neighborhoods tax free. So you owe that community. And the way you owe it and pay it is to serve it. When I became pastor, the first thing we did was have community meetings. How do we serve you? How do we help you? Because we owe you. And we see our membership as the community. They say, well, what about the people that join the church, go to church? Oh, those are the people that joined the boot camp. They're in the army. and to make a difference out here. But our membership is everybody. We serve everybody in the community. And that's why we do all the things we do in the community. And people say, I don't know, you spend all that money, you do all this thing, you're feeding people, you do these walks, you're getting people jobs, you're taking care of those with records, you're helping people at the social service office, and you're doing all these things. And they're not those people aren't coming to your church. Well, I kind of remember a guy who fed over 5,000 people, but he only had 12 people in his church. It's not about numbers, it's about service.
Not to be argumentative, but it seems like the church that
Okay,
you're talking about is a very different church than I would say, the last 2000 years of religious belief. I think religious belief has more often been perverted than been adhered to. So
absolutely.
why where does this come from? Are there other churches that feel the same that you do, or are you really an outlier? And if you are an outlier, whom do you go to try and get bigger change to happen more systemically?
Well, I have, first of all, my definition of church, I think, was birthed in what Jesus did.
Mm,
Most of everything he did was outside of a temple, not in a
true.
temple. He didn't even sleep overnight in Jerusalem until he was in jail. Um, so I think, first of all, it's the model of Jesus, and then I was I was very, very much molded by Dr. King's description of church, the beloved community, and what he tried to do at Dexter Avenue, and what he tried to do at Ebenezer, and what the church is supposed to be. So that's where my model for church came, which was rooted in the church of Jesus. Um, so I found myself more in in groups like Live Free and other organizations more so than in church groups to try to push that kind of a church because church groups seem to want to kill it. So my thing is to continue to challenge them on it, continue to say, well, how was this church? Or continue to confront it and challenge it. And the other side of the coin of how we do it is to model and saying, show that it works. This church was sent to close and had about 60 members. Today we have over 2,000 members. We are self-sufficient. We don't take any money from the archdiocese
You don't?
and none,
That's
zero.
very, is that very unusual? It is, correct?
Yes, very unusual. But I find that there's a whole mass of people out there who are looking for this kind of a church
Okay.
and either have come and have joined or have saying, I live too far away, or other, but I want to support it because this is what church is to me. So I believe that there's an untapped, huge amount of people that we are ignoring by trying to run a church that doesn't work. And I would think that if you look out of your congregation, your membership is 60 or older, and your main ministry is funerals, that you might think, I got to change something.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't change it, just like the Democrats, if they don't change with this and see what Mamdani did, then die. Then let the Democrat organization die.
Yeah.
I thank God for a Bernie Sanders. I thank God for OSC. I thank God for a Jasmine Crockett because they are the future. Now, if the medium Democratic Party doesn't see that, bye.
I agree. I agree. But I think what I wonder is the church is such an institution. And to be fair, it seems like they've tried to move you a lot of times. They've tried to get rid of you to some
Absolutely.
other disparate place. And you've always said no. How did you manage to rebuke that? And what is the cost for doing so?
I'm an outcast in the diocese, and I know that. I know that, and that's okay. The very few times I do go to large priest meetings, to be pointed at, and oh, there he is. Look at them, look and shake their head. I've had letters from priests telling me to leave the priesthood because I'm an embarrassment at the church, and I said, I'm fine. Why don't you leave? If you have a problem with me, you leave. Um, I the people is what kept me here every time. It was the people who fought, marched, protested. It was the people, and what I have said is when I first became pastor here, there was a guy who was a very big activist in the city who had stopped coming to church here, I guess. He lived a block away. Then he started coming. And I met him. He would always leave. He'd come in and leave out before church was over. One Sunday, I'm leaving out of church, and he was still there. And I said, "Oh, good to see you. How you doing, Mr. Johnson?" He said, "Come to my house after church." I said, okay. After church, I walked over to his house a block away. And he said, "I want to know something." He said, "Are you here for the long haul? Or are you just another one here 6 years, do your time and pass on and go someplace else?" And I said, "I'll be here as long as the people want me here. I'll fight to stay here as long as the people want me here. When they don't want me here, I'll be the first to go." And I meant that because when people come now and they look and see, we're a $10 million organization. We have 190 employees. We run a social service center. We run a senior building. We run an apartment building. We run a school. We run an employment center. We run a violence prevention center. We run the King Center for Justice Involved Youth. And they see all this. And my God, you have all this going on. This didn't happen overnight. Communities like this that have been neglected and abandoned, you have to roll up your sleeves and work, and it's a slow process. But as the people see you're for real, they'll join in. And so it's grown to this now. And that's why it's been so hard to find a replacement because everybody says, well, that's too big. I want to say mass and hear confessions and that's it. I don't want to take over all this outreach. Well, if you look at the gospel, Jesus' biggest ministry was outreach. It
So,
wasn't going to the synagogue once a week and preaching.
how does this dream then not die with you?
How did what?
How does this dream then not die with you? How does it keep going?
Well, when you find the answer to that question, let me know, will you? Because my thing is that I know right now that a priest coming in here who would support this and believe in this, it'll continue and can grow. We have wonderful lay leadership. We have wonderful heads of all these different departments that are great and passionate and do it out of their faith and serve. But if you get somebody in here that wants to run a 1960s church, it'll all die. And people say, well, then, test of a good leader is somebody who brings somebody in to continue it and it grows, not dies. Well, I believe in that. But guess what? I'm in a hierarchical church. I can't point a leader here. The diocese appoints. So they come in and appoint somebody here that in all Catholic dioceses, the church doesn't decide its future. It's
Oh,
who the personnel board and the cardinal or the archbishop put in over a church. Oh, they have meetings to say, let's see what the church wants. Bob Watts says countless times all over the country, they'll say they want this and then they give them somebody else. So it depends on, it's like any organization. Business, economic, school, leadership is key. So if they don't want to put somebody in here that is going to affirm, support, and encourage and continue, I'm not looking for anybody to come in here and be Mike Pfleger. I hope somebody come in here with many more dreams and ideas and goals and takes it to the next level. But unfortunately, most of your people, and not just in the Catholic Church, but most of your people in seminaries, Lutheran Seminary, McCormick, University of Chicago Seminary, are conservatives.
right.
And the future of the church is in the hands of those in charge.
So, how does your faith then help you with this idea that you've built this thing and the meaning it has to the community, and that you have no power to keep it moving forward past yourself? Like, how do you
Well,
reconcile that?
I can't control the future,
Right.
but what I can do is make an impact in the present.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, this is God's thing. Now, if they send somebody in here after me, if I die tomorrow and they send somebody in here that wants to close all this down or does wants to say we're not going to do all this, people leave.
Okay.
And maybe that's what they want. That's exactly what they want. But that's not in my hands. At the end of the day, they have to answer to God, not Mike Pfleger. I my job is to do everything I believe God's called me to do right now and trying to prepare leaders. And I do. I have great leaders here, amazing leaders here. Oh, I mean, who could take this church and take it forward tomorrow without me. But who they send in as the pastor, that blood is on their hands.
Right. I mean, to a certain extent, it sounds like you very much live in the present.
Got to. I mean, I always want to have a vision of the future.
Yeah.
I can say right now, they say, well, have you given it everything? Oh God, I have so many more things I want to do here. And but I, I can have a mission and a vision for the future. There's nothing I can do about the past. But right now, what happens today in this church, we can feed people today. We can help people get jobs today. We can have our youth in our youth program today. We got kids in our school. Today, we're going to do the best we can do. Bible's real clear. Tomorrow's not promised.
That's fair. That's fair. It sounds hard, but that is fair and it's true.
Yeah.
So, a weird, more biblical question. Since we are created from original sin, how do you understand the progress we're capable of and the terrible things we keep falling into? And how are we both perfect and existentially imperfect in the same time?
Well, we have to recognize our humanity. There's none that righteous, no, not one. And we are people who our whole lives are struggling to get it right. You know, we're made in the image and likeness of God. We have that potential,
Okay.
but we live in this flesh. And so, you know, foolish to the person that ever think they're arrived.
Okay.
We're always struggling with the flesh. Every day is a daily battle. Sometimes, many times a day is a daily battle to get it right. You know, we're not perfect. We'll never be perfect, but we ought to aim towards being like the perfect one. And that's the struggle. It's an evolution. Or the scriptures put it as working out our salvation. We're always working it out. We're always growing. We're always learning. We're always looking at something. My dad, who died at 96, um, used to wake up at 95 and say, "What's God got to teach me today?" And that's how we have to see life. Every day there's something I can learn from a child, from a senior, from a brother on the street. Every time I enter a conversation or enter into a room of people, I think, what can I learn in this room? It's not about what I have to give, it's what I have to learn. Share my testimony and learn from somebody. Life is the greatest classroom there'll ever be.
Did you come from religious people or is your commitment
Yeah,
different
I
than where
did.
you
I
came
mean,
from?
both my parents, were very involved in the church. But we're involved in the church, but always free. I remember one time when I got kicked out of the seminary, and the bishop met with my mother and told her, "You don't understand that, and Michael's going to have to get this right or never, and if you support in these things that he's doing, you could be excommunicated." My mother said, "Excommunicated? Go ahead, so what?" And in those days, there weren't too many people that said that to a bishop. But
So
I lived in a house. Pardon?
your parents were unafraid. They were not they didn't want you to
Unafraid,
conform.
unafraid. They birthed my radicalism and birthed my faith. And I think one of the reasons where I had an older sister who was 10 years older than me that had mentally challenged. And of course, in those days, in the 50s, she was retarded, and they saw how the institutions, including the church, treated her. And they said, please don't preach to me about how my son isn't Catholic enough when the Catholic Church wouldn't the Catholic hospital wouldn't hire my daughter because she was retarded. So again, life teaches us things, and if we learn the lessons, it keeps us from getting in the ruts of religion and government and politics, and keeps us free to be led by God.
When you're angry, how do you not fall into hating?
Well, I have to tell you, sometimes I have to pray, because sometimes that I think I'd be a fool not to acknowledge that that doesn't rise up. I mean, those days that if by the end of the day, or sometimes it's something new or something thing that Trump has said, I just said, God, just I want him to die. I want him to die. And then I have to repent. I have to forgive us. Okay, this is your call, God, but what he's doing is evil. But he's evil, and it's in your hands. Um, so there's times when your feelings, your emotions, and your thinking cause you to hate, cause you to wish evil on people. And that's, I think, the times when you got to stay, if you stay connected to God, I think, and you keep going back to the throne and getting back in his presence, now he'll convict you real quick and say, oh, now are you like, have you become the enemy that you hate? So I think it's that there's nothing more important with anything we do than our own relationship with God. And that's where conviction takes place from the God in you. And then having the people around you said, hey, Mike, that's not right. Yeah, you're right.
What do you use to, so what's the panacea though? What's the thing that brings the hate back down? Because I'm sure in the communities you're in and seeing the real impact, what is the mechanism to turn around and sort of diffuse it? Because it can't all be logic, right? Because it's a feeling.
Yeah, no, it's not a logic. It's real. It's recognizing that I'm a fraud if I'm demanding that of others and not practicing it myself.
Okay.
I'm a fraud.
Okay.
If I'm hating and I'm telling somebody else you can't hate, I'm a fraud.
Okay.
So while the emotion is real and there and feeling, as I preach and I teach, emotions are real, and God went through all kind of trouble to give us the emotions. But emotions should never be what makes our decisions.
Okay.
Never.
Okay.
Got to be our conscience, our heart, and our mind.
Okay. So with that in mind, you also you've had a complicated relationship, I would say, with free speech and with hate speech. And what I mean by that is you've petitioned for like certain billboards to be taken down. You've had discourse with different rappers who use certain words a lot in their speech, especially stuff that codifies women and other groups in certain ways. But you are also good friends with some very controversial religious leaders who do say things that sometimes are challenging to different communities. How do you look at all of that and how do you reconcile it? Because I am curious, because I think both, I think free speech is very important. And I think there are truths people don't like. But then I think sometimes there are global statements that are harmful. So, like, how do you manage all of that?
Absolutely. Well, I think a couple of things. I think number one is that somebody can, when there's things that both this administration has said, and there's things that the Klan has said, that when the Klan has a permit to march down the street and the screaming ends go home, that's free speech.
Right.
But I think it can be named and identified and called out as hate.
Yes.
I think you can do both. I think that anything that is anti-Muslim, anti-Jewish, anti-whatever can be called out as hate. And I know you're probably talking about my relationship with Mr. Farrakhan, and I have I know the man, and has there things he said that I've disagreed with? Yes. There's, I don't know anybody that's not things that I haven't disagreed with. There's things about I said I've disagreed with.
Right.
But the reality is, and I'll say that, but I am not gonna disconnect from somebody. I There's a person who was one of the most racist people in my life that I ever met that I told him, I'm still going to love you. I think what you're doing is wicked and it's evil, and I don't want to be around it because it vexes my spirit. But I'm going to love you, and I'm going to love. My love is going to cause me to pray for you that you get that revelation. And before he died, he called me up and said, I apologize for all the things you had to hear me say and do. Now, is that one in a million? Perhaps. But I think that I don't think I think we have to at least aim at never writing anybody off.
Okay.
Dr. King, one of the things that I wrestle and still wrestle with him today. He had his 5 steps of social justice. Of number one, information and education. That alone should change somebody. Then it was, negotiation. We kind of talk through it and try to work it out and get it right. Then it was self-purification. Am I doing it for the right reason? Am I got the right heart? Is this about me or is this about the issue? Then there was the fourth one, which was um, demonstration, where it was his civil disobedience and protesting and marching. And the last one was always reconciliation. He said, we never ever totally win until we make our enemy our friend. Now, does that happen most often? No, but you always got to aim at it. I would love Donald Trump to be convicted. I would love Stephen Miller to be convicted. I would love Christine Nome to be convicted. Do I think they will be? Me personally, I don't. But I pray that they do. And I pray if they don't do it from within, that enough people saying what you're doing is evil will cause them to rethink what they're doing. That's all I can do. That's between them and God. But, as I said here in church yesterday, but they have to remember, I know Donald Trump was given immunity by the Supreme Court to do just about whatever he wants. But immunity is only good on earth.
Okay. No, and I
Heaven,
appreciate you.
no,
I
I said the kingdom of God didn't give him immunity.
No, and I appreciate you talking about it because I think something that a lot of us struggle with is um, how unacceptable what's going on a grand scale, but I think also with our neighbors, our friends, our peers, where you look at someone who you do have love for and they are not willing to really put some skin in the game and they're not willing to really fight. And so that's something where I look at it and I think, you know, I know
Absolutely.
people have multiple sides, but there's a degree to which the complicitness of others right now, or maybe the sort of sub rosa dislike or racism or whatever else, feels very palpable and overwhelming in a way that I have not experienced before.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think that I got, I've been very outspoken about, I've been called anti-Semite for as recently as what, about a week and a half ago. And I'm a huge anti-Semite because I will continue to call what's going on in Gaza genocide.
Of
And I'm
course,
not bowing from that.
of course.
I'm not bending from that. So if that's you call me anti-Semite for that, okay, so be it. But I'm going to continue to say it's genocide,
Right.
you know. And I refuse to feel that there's any group, government, religion, priests, pastors, Christian, Muslim, Jews, that you can't challenge without being identified as anti-Semite or anti or homophobia or Islamophobia or whatever. No, if you won't have the conversation with me and you won't look at facts with me, then I'm not wasting my time on what you call me. I've been called a little of everything in my life, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, I have to answer to God.
No, that makes sense. I think it's complicated, right? Like there's a part of me
Oh, it
that
is.
loves what you do and loves what you say, and then I see sort of the harm other people saying that they believe the same things but not doing the same things, are doing on
Right.
such a grand scale. And that's part of why I
Oh,
really
yeah.
wanted to talk to you, because I think there's a very different message that's not been that's not perverted the way that it is with other people in power. And I want people to hear that.
Yes.
That was, you did fabulously. I really appreciate it. And I think in a time like this where we are, people having exposure to what you believe and how different faith can be is very powerful. So I really, really appreciate you taking so much time out for us.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Of
Keep
course.
us in prayer.
I will. Thank you very much. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
day. Take
You
care.
too. Be blessed.
You too. Bye.